last week, actually, I was not doing the Grandmaster in residency. Ben Feingold was, and I was actually teaching an all-girls chess camp, but not just any all-girls chess camp. This was quite extraordinary, probably the strongest in terms of like age and rating in America ever, I would imagine, because it was super strong. There was actually a 12-year-old master in the tournament who defeated Irina Krush's record pretty recently for becoming the youngest female master in America. Her name is Annie Wang. And there were several other very young chess masters in that group. Really exciting because it's going to change the composition of the U.S. Women's Chess Championship quite soon, I believe. Probably within like 5 years, those girls will gain another 100 or 200 points and they'll all be playing in the women's. And who knows, maybe one of them will be playing in the championship, which is actually open to both genders, right? So this is a game from a women's championship a while ago where I was playing white. And here I was playing against Anna Hahn, who won the women's championship herself once. Since then, she kind of got into finance and started doing really well and didn't play as much chess anymore. But she was a regular on the women's championship scene for many years and did quite well. This position interested me though because she was a little higher rated than me, and I did win this game. But it surprised me after the game that she didn't see my move here, because to me it seemed kind of obvious, and I think that's a real clear example of both the theme that I'm going to demonstrate and also something that's just inherent to chess itself. It's always easier to see your own ideas than to see your opponent's ideas, right? Because seeing your opponent's ideas requires you to look really critically at your position and their potential weaknesses. So generally, almost everybody has an easier time finding our own strategic and tactical ideas than finding the ones that our opponent's trying to play against us. So something to keep in mind. And Doboretsky talks about this a lot in his books, and he calls this prophylactic thinking. Trying to put yourself in your opponent's shoes at all times is a really crucial skill, so that you can kind of bridge that distance between, you know, maybe you're a 20, maybe if you're 1800, you might be 2000 at finding tactics for yourself and 1600 for finding tactics for your opponent, and combine them together, you get 1800. So that maybe you can bridge that gap and just become a stronger player. So here, white to move, what do you think the best move is? What?
Rook d6.
Yeah, rook d6, why?
It's putting a lot of pressure on that pawn, and it's possibly going to
Right.
It can't be the best pawn.
Exactly, rook to d6. It's a pretty simple example of the theme. I mean, it looks like white should be better here, right? Like I've got a bishop that's a better piece. But if I don't have a way to do something here, I shouldn't be much, right? The black's pawns are a little bit weaker. My king is better as well on g2. So everything about my position is a little bit better, but I really need something to increase my advantage. So rook d6, and I have a really good position. But the reason I wanted to show this move was actually because it's the theme of our lecture today, which is something I learned from the U.S. Chess School, actually. The girls are so smart. They taught me a lot of things. And there was one position in particular that we're going to get to a little later where I showed it to them, and they told me, one of the girls who was very well read, she was always reading like so many chess books, only 14, but you could tell she knew all about chess history and the top players. And she told me about the word collinear. Collinear, actually, she pronounced it collinear, not collinear. Collinear sounds cooler. It sounds kind of French. It doesn't sound like some kind of math term. So collinear is a term that was coined by John Nunn in reference to chess. It has a math meaning before that, which means moving the piece backwards or forwards on a line where you could also capture something, right? So for some reason, those moves are considered to be harder to find because usually you inherently, if you're any good at chess, you've probably reached a level where you kind of automatically look at captures and checks, because that's how you get from like 600 to 1200, right? You know, like if you're able to always look at the checks and captures, because those are the forcing sequences, which often end in checkmate or just winning all your opponent's pieces. So the problem is, the better you get, that tendency can occasionally come back to harm you, right? You're looking, like for instance, a lot of players will just start looking at rook takes rook here. It's actually a really terrible move, rook takes rook, right? Because you acquiesce the the file. But still, there's something going on in people's minds where they will look at that even for just a millisecond, because you got to look at trades to get good. That's what wins material. And then when you get better, you have to learn when not to trade, a very crucial skill. So yeah, rook d6, and I won the game. It's too much pressure for Wyatt. Now I'm going to show you some other examples. Don't worry about that. We're going to come back to the good stuff. Okay, now in honor of the Sinkville Cup, I did want to show you one example from none other than the founder of the St. Louis Chess Club and the president here, Rex Sinkfield. This game was actually published in the New York Times, and it's a really cool move that he played here, which will probably be obvious to you after that last example, but still, what do you do here as black? So black to move. This one's actually a little harder than the last one. Yeah, rook g5 is the move. It's an excellent move because it's probably a tiny bit harder because generally backward moves are a little harder to see than forward moves in chess. So the idea here is not to look at trading, which allows perpetuals, but to find this like very beautiful solid move. Why is it not actually? I'm having some trouble. 1 second. I'm having trouble actually moving the pieces here. For some reason, it's not actually going through the game. Okay, there, I think that's working now. So rook to g5, and now it's very difficult for white because if we take on g5, we just get to close everything down. I'm probably taking with the, they both look fine, honestly. Taking with the h or the g pawn. And then it's just going to be too much for white because the e4 pawn and the c3 pawn are both going to be under fire. You can't really defend both of them at all. So this position is just totally crushing for black now. But it's kind of a tough move to find because it's very patient. Especially if you haven't been looking at collinear moves. Then it's really hard to find. That's the thing, everything is harder to find in practice than it is in theory. If you look at a position in a book, in a chapter about a certain subject, it's going to be about 5 times easier to find it in that book than it will over the board. So that's why, in general, it's good to look at a lot of really simple tactics before a big tournament, because those you want to be able to find simple things quickly in chess, as well as finding really deep things. So let's look at some other examples. So after rook g5, I think white just doesn't even have really much moves at all, right? It's kind of a very clear example. But almost a lot of chess players would start looking at forcing things like rook g1 and queen g1 and trying to calculate all that. So back to my database. I'm gonna go. So in this position, what do you think white played? Again, rook d6, yeah. So now you're gonna get good at finding these types of moves, right? And this annotation is actually pointing out a nice move that if white plays e5 here, trying to kind of highlight how horrendous this bishop is, which it is for the moment, black now will play what?
Rook to d5.
Right, basically the same type of idea, like an outpost for the rook on the file to stop white from outposting his own rook on the file. And now, even though black has that terrible bishop on b7, and you're going to kind of have to deal with your c pawn, right? So that helps them hold the balance a little bit. So instead, rook to d6, and again, like before, it's very difficult now for black because we exert so much control over the position, and we're ready to play rook d1 as well. It's not going forward for some reason. I might have to close this up and bring it up again. Let me see. Maybe it'll be okay for the next one. And now what would you do as white? Right, rook to c6. See, it's so oh, actually, bishop h6 first. I think that rook c6 right away first is good also, though. I think so. I don't really.
I don't think so.
Wait, is there something? Let me look.
Rook takes,
Wait, let me.
pawn takes.
Yeah, let's see what the difference is. Let's try to discover what the difference is. Somebody thinks that there is a big difference. Let's see. So do you think bishop h6, throwing in bishop h6 immediately is necessary is the question. Bishop h6, of course, forces what?
Pawn push on the f6.
Right, bishop h6 forces f6, which has got to be a nice thing to add, but what is the difference? So if rook c6, immediately pawn c6, queen c6, b5, do you see some defense there for black? Is that it? I don't see any defense there either. Yeah, we can still just take on a6. So wait, did somebody see something? After rook,
After, right. Then rook takes what?
Rook takes.
and then what did you think?
Queen that takes.
Queen takes.
You're actually losing a pawn.
What do you mean?
Is there a board?
That's the idea, yeah, b5. But I think there might be a way to have more counterplay here for some reason. I agree that there might be something here. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I think that the one difference might be, maybe it's slightly less terrible. It might, no, this looks pretty bad as well. But it might be like slightly better, because notice that when the pawn is on f6, we also have checks on d5, which make the position even more overwhelming in lines like after queen c7 or something. Yeah, but it's honestly, it doesn't seem like rook c6 right away is a massive error. But bishop h6, throwing in bishop h6, f6, and then following it up with rook c6, even stronger now, because now after rook takes c6, pawn takes c6, you're also coming in with queen d5 possibilities and queen f7. So it's even more crushing, right?
Could you move pawn to e6 initially if you had moved that bishop first?
That's a good question. Yeah, I was trying to find a difference. It might be something like that. Or, oh, you know what? I think I see it. E6 is one possibility. Yeah, of course. There is a better move here. Yeah. Now that I see it, it's so obvious. See, that's the problem when you look at things in the wrong order. For some reason we were looking at rook takes c6, pawn takes c6, which is definitely not the first thing to look at here if you're black. So that's the whole disease that I was talking about, looking at the trades before looking at other moves. So actually e6, I don't think e6 is the right move, but yeah, e5 right away is definitely right. That's got to be good, and unless pawn takes e6 works, but it doesn't seem to, because after queen takes c6, I don't see any mate there. Although it's kind of messy. Let's take a look. Kind of interesting. What do you do here? You probably have to go f6, queen takes f6, and queen c7. Right? That doesn't look like it works though, because of e7. Yeah. What else? What else do we defend here? So we must play f6, and then after queen takes f6, rook c7. Same thing though. e7 looks real good. But I guess at least you can sacrifice and play queen c7 there. Right? You guys follow me? So I'm saying like f6 here, queen f6. Rook c7, and now stopping the mate, you play e7. So now in order to stop the mate, again, we have to sacrifice ourselves. But even here, it's better. It's not, doesn't look like resigns yet. So you're up 2 pawns. You're up 2 pawns though, so it's pretty good. What's that?
You can play rook takes c6 instead of the queen, or was that queen on?
What's that?
never mind. I was thinking you play rook takes c6. I just forgot the queen was on d7 right now.
But even here, it's not so clear because you don't have to play queen takes c6. You could also, maybe there's something interesting with queen takes e6.
Yeah.
So so bishop h6 immediately, and that's an example of move order. It's like good to see if you have a good idea like rook c6 to try to add moves like bishop h6 and see if it changes anything, right? I'm gonna skip a few. Any other questions about that position? I'm gonna try to skip ahead a little bit to a couple that I wanted to look at. Okay, what to do in this position? This one is kind of, yeah, this one's interesting. I don't know, it's quite a clear example of collinear as the other ones, but it's a cool position. So black to move. If I kept showing you positions with rook c6 and rook c5, I mean, anyway, it would be too obvious what the answers were. So this is a little bit more of a combination of that theme of collinear with the idea of prophylaxis. So prophylaxis ideas that I was talking about earlier, which means really anticipating your opponent's ideas, whether they're freeing ideas or whether they're aggressive ideas. It's good to anticipate. Rook d5, that's exactly the point. If rook d5, what's your plan? Okay, good idea. So if rook d5 with the idea of rook a5, if your opponent is a smart person, I mean, if they're a good chess player and smart person, I definitely should not use those synonymously. But if rook to d5 here, with the idea of rook a5, what might white play to try to avoid disaster? Or other words, losing all of their pawns.
Bishop b5.
Bishop where?
b5.
Bishop to.
I'm sorry, to b6.
Bishop b6. Okay, yeah. Well, the problem with that, it looks so artificial. There is a couple problems with it. What's the most direct problem with bishop b6? So what is bishop on e3 defending against? Bishop on e3 is defending against a key move that black could play if you played rook d5, bishop b6. Rook d2 check would just win a pawn. So you guard against one threat, but then you let me in with another threat. And granted, this position is a bit difficult to defend for white, and the reason for that is the black bishop is better than the white bishop, and the black rook is better than the white rook. So it's just like purely much better for black, and white's the one who has to kind of defend. But after rook d5, instead of defending with bishop b6, what else? What other possible defensive ideas are there? Because your idea is just to play rook a5 and take my pawn, right? I can't play rook a1 because bishop takes b2. Simple idea, rook d5 to rook a5. So this is another thing. It's kind of a process of elimination here for white. Your position's pretty bad, so if you can find a way to stop rook a5 and just take on a2, you might just want to play it, right? And you still will be under some pressure, but it can't be that bad. No, c4 is interesting. So I don't like c4 as much because we could you're trying to, like, if I take en passant, you're trying to play rook c1 at the end of the variation.
Just trying to stop.
Right. So c4 is an interesting move because, oh, sorry, rook d5. After rook d5, c4 here. I play, I was thinking about this, this, and this, but I guess you were just going to play rook here now. And your argument is that you're getting a lot of counterplay, which, let's see. Oh, there's one issue here.
It's moved. It's
No, it's black's move now.
Oh, I see.
I do see bishop. Trying to see if bishop d2 is any good here. I don't think it's that special though. After bishop d2, rook takes c6. Rook f5 check. You can just go to e2, and that doesn't really lead to much. So I think actually after c4, I probably have a better move. Probably I should just do what I was going to do all along, which is rook a5, because it actually doesn't change anything if I don't get distracted by the idea of a free pawn and just go with my original plan. Because you still can't play a3, I just take it, and you still can't play rook a1, because I just take here, right? Yeah, exactly. So don't get caught up just because you offered me a pawn in a different way. I still should take it the way that I wanted to take it originally, which would not only win a pawn, but also you're not getting any activity, right? Like after rook a5, you're not getting any activity here because, well, you can try rook d1. That would be a way to get activity, but first of all, yeah, I mean, I can just take all your pawns. You're not getting you're not getting enough activity, right? You're not actually winning any of your pawns. So what else? So c4 is a pretty good idea, actually. It's like a good attempt because you're kind of teasing me. You want me to take on c3 and then you get counterplay. But instead, I decided just to go rook a5. So what else? In general, when you're down in material, when you're on the defensive like this, you do kind of want to seek out trades. So c4 is a good idea in that respect. A3 is the correct move, yes. And now after pawn takes a3, pawn takes a3, it's not totally clear. It looks like white is coming to the defense a little bit here, right? So instead, what other moves are there here? So rook d5 is definitely one of the moves that I would look at first. Yeah, so rook to b8 is a very clever idea here. So basically it has the same idea as rook d5, but what does it stop? It stops a3. Why does it stop a3? Because we can't take it because this pawn is pinned, right? So this is also one of those, like, I kind of consider this more like a quiet move or a mysterious rook move, as I think Nimzovich coined it, in that it seems so passive to play rook b8, but it's obviously very aggressive because the idea after rook b8 is to just play rook b5 and rook a5. Except now we just take away your one way of defending against it, right? So rook b8, a really brilliant move. I guess it's collinear in the sense that the rook is going on a square. It's probably not as great an example in that respect, but it's a really cool move, so I included it anyway. Rook to b8, and now white's in trouble. I showed a3, but it's much more difficult for white to defend here because rook b8 and b5 and a5 is coming into the position with good effect. And notice your bishop b6 idea is also prevented. All right, now I want to show you the position that started all this. This is white to move and win. So this is the position we showed in the girls' school, in the US chess school, to the all-girls class. And it took them a little while to solve this, and they were mostly 2200. So 2000 to 2200 was basically the ratings of the group. A few 1900s. But all of them like really studying a lot of tactics and openings. They're really serious about chess. So take a few minutes and try to figure out how to win here for white. And the important thing here is look at your opponent's possibilities too. So don't think, it's not going to be that easy, right? You might see a line that looks pretty good, but you better make sure that you're looking for black's defensive ideas, because otherwise there's a good chance you'll just be wrong. Give it some time, like at least 2 minutes. At least 2 minutes before we try. All right, who's got an idea? Yeah? You found a defense against it?
I found a way to stop white from losing. And also attack at the same time, but I mean, I haven't figured out how the whole thing ends.
All right, what do you
3 moves.
what do you think?
I'm thinking the first move is queen to b2. Check.
Well, if queen to b2 check, then bishop f6.
Bishop to d4.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, but black does have a good defensive move there. So bishop d4 check, bishop f6, queen b2. What can black do to defend? Yeah, king g7 is a pretty good defensive move there. What was your idea, Kyle? Similar? Oh wow, I thought of that too. That was one of my first ideas because one of the issues here is that what's black's counterplay? Why do a lot of the obvious C1 mating? Yeah, exactly. So you guys are on the right track that you're looking for moves that both attack and defend, but it's not that one. That's a really good idea too. That looks really attractive because so bishop's idea, to repeat everybody, is bishop d4, then bishop f6, and then queen c4, with the idea that if queen takes c4, you have what? Well, you have bishop takes f6, and then, yeah, you're winning a piece, right? So, but instead, bishop d4, bishop f6, queen c4, black has a good defensive move. A tricky defensive move. At first I thought king g7 defended there, but I don't think it's a very good defensive move. There's a way better one. After bishop d4 check, bishop f6, queen c4, black has a really good move.
98.
It's not 98 because that allows queen g8. Yeah, that was kind of the idea of queen c4. That knight d5 is a very good move, yeah, because now we can't play queen takes d5 because of what? C1 again. And if you play bishop takes f6, then what?
I'm lost in the visual right now.
Yeah, you got to work on it, man. That's why I'm making you do it. That's how you become.
Well,
that's how you get.
Track of where we started.
Okay, no, I'm happy to repeat it. But I'm happy to repeat it. But that being said, I'm doing it on purpose. Also, partly because sometimes chess-base pops up the correct answers if I play too many moves. And I don't want to give this one away.
Bishop takes f6, knight takes f6.
Knight takes f6. Exactly. But so bishop d4, bishop f6, queen c4, knight d5, with the idea that after bishop takes f6, knight takes f6, defend everything. Those knights are just such pesky defenders. They're good at defending kings, you know. So it's nice that it's on c7 for the moment. Once it gets to f6, it's like the party's over. Of course, the most direct thing to look at is bishop d4 check, bishop f6, queen e7, right? But as usual in our variations here, that loses to what? Again, queen c1, yeah. But that's like the first thing I'm sure most of you looked at, probably, yeah.
The reason I want to go to B2.
Yeah. You guys are so close to getting it, I'm not giving any hints.
Yeah, I couldn't come to one. Then do that then. First move correct?
Bishop d4 check, it is correct, yeah.
Bishop
It is
correct.
Yeah, wow, you guys are good at the process of elimination thing. Bishop d4 check, bishop f6 are the first two moves. Okay, you guys got it right, we can go now.
Queen c4 is a kind of
Well, I just said knight d5, yeah. Knight d5 is a really good defensive move. Knight d5 is a really good defense, yeah, so it's not good. Yeah, you can't.
C4, knight d5, queen, trade the queens, then take the knight with the bishop, and then your other bishop takes out his and your bishop up.
Wait, so repeat that again. So you're saying after bishop d4 check, bishop f6, queen c4, knight d5, you'll just play queen takes
Queen
c6.
takes c6, pawn takes back at c6, bishop takes knight at d5, pawn takes back bishop.
Well, I could also take something else. Yeah, I can take on d4. Yeah. So I take on
And then you
d4.
take the pawn, and then you're
Bishops of
you're up
opposite.
pawn, and you have a bishop.
And bishops of opposite color endgame, yeah.
But you're up pawn.
But yeah, it's not. First of all, yeah, I mean, it's not the answer.
I figured that much.
And you know bishops of opposite color are very drawish. And you have a win by force here. So the combination of those two things make that not the correct answer.
There's a way to distract my queen from defending the bishop. I don't know.
This is an incredibly hard move to find.
What about bishop to
Bishop g5 right now?
forcing? Yeah,
But I can, wait, I can take it, right?
but then queen to queen to e5.
Yeah, and then I can drop my bishop back. That's a problem. Now I can control the diagonal.
Okay,
Yeah. Also, I already said that bishop d4, bishop f6 is right.
All right.
I gave you guys that. Don't worry. It took the U.S. chess school this long to solve it too. They were still working on it, and it took me a long time as well.
It's irritating. I'm calculating so many goofy things and nothing works.
Yeah, the thing about this move is once you see it, you know it's the right move, and it's really annoying. It took me forever to find it, and when I saw it, I was like, it's one of those like head slap moments.
Would you then slide the queen back to b2 like we said originally, like after you've done all that?
Well, it's the same thing because it's just a different move order. If you play bishop d4, bishop f6, queen b2, it's exactly the same position as playing queen b2, bishop f6, bishop d4, and then he just plays king g7. So that is a good idea, but it doesn't work for the same reason.
What about moving the bishop back to b2?
So bishop d4, bishop f6, and then bishop b2. Yeah, you guys like that idea?
I was thinking about this too.
What's that?
I was thinking.
You were just about to say that? Yeah, that's a great move. It's such a good move. It's such a right because they still can't take on b2, right? Because mate. And now you're threatening what? After bishop d4, bishop f6, bishop b2, what's your threat? Yeah, somebody said it. Joseph, did you say it?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, I heard somebody mutter it. Bishop d4, bishop f6, bishop b2. What's the threat for white? There's a very strong threat. Oh, the threat is thinking too long and the computer dying. Bishop d4, bishop f6, bishop b2. You have a big threat. It's already been mentioned.
Is it E2 or B2?
B2. B is in baby. Yeah. Bishop d4 check. Bishop f6. Bishop b2. Yeah, queen e7 is a threat, right? Because you can't take the queen because of the pin, and you can't take on b2 because of what? Queen f8 mate. Yeah. So that's the big idea, that after bishop d4 check, bishop f6, you can't play queen e7 because of mate. But after bishop d4 check, bishop f6, bishop b2, you're actually powerless to stop queen e7 because if king g7, we have queen e7 anyway, right? So isn't there a rule against people on staff getting the questions
Well,
right?
I should have got that right. I'm
No.
not impressed with anyone here that I got that.
No, that's pretty good. What's your rating?
Like 1,000?
Oh yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah. So you're allowed.
The collinear fan just going back along the diagonal?
So bishop d4, bishop f6. Oh, that should have made it easier.
That's when I started thinking about those.
Ah, yeah.
I couldn't find queen 7. I was like, queen b2, bishop b2, I'm like, that looks like it follows the theme of the lecture. But
Ah, but you didn't see Queen E7. You didn't see that it was unstoppable. Oh, there is one more cool thing. If Bishop D2, Bishop F6, Bishop B2, what if Black plays Knight to E8?
So we'll take it to the queen and make it bishop.
That's right. It's just mating after Queen takes E8. Queen takes E8, Bishop takes F6 is mating. Now I'll put it on the board just for fun. Oh, such a great move, Bishop E2. It's so aesthetic. Like if Bishop takes D2, Queen B2 is mating, and now Queen E7 is just unstoppable. Really, really nice move. So the point being, oh, this Knight E8. Now, the prettier way to win is, of course, no more moves. Checkmate. So,
Like the knight D5.
but a lot of this, a lot of this comes into something which it's not even really. A lot of these problems were tactical or like somewhat strategic, but really, ultimately, it's looking at moves which aren't captures, which tend to be a little bit less intuitive for people. So that instinct of always capturing is so ingrained that some of these moves kind of force that out of us. And the stronger the player, the more likely they are to look for ways to keep the tension, keep the pieces on the board. And this is another really good example of that. So thanks, guys. That was fun. And good job to the Bishop B2 move there. I'll see you guys all at the Sinkfield Cup in just a month.